Now, let's be real. With a name like Shawn Haq, I'm probably on a couple of NSA watch lists already. And after last night's Google searches, I definitely am. And some people might call that racism. I don't see a problem with it. But I do know racism when I see it. And it's because today's bill targets not only terrorism, stops ISIL's recruitment, but it also stops racist hate crimes that we must avert. So first, let's take a look at something Senator Brown mentioned earlier in today's session. He said that Twitter cannot look through all of Donald Trump's probably many flagged tweets. And that's absolutely true. He talked about the key words that hate crimes could also be, or hate speech could also be flagged. But that's actually a good thing. You see, a CNN article from December explained that similar to what happened post 9/11, because of the rise of ISIS and attacks like the Paris attacks and Charlie Hebdo, there's been a drastic rise in Islamophobic hate crimes. That's putting the lives of hundreds of Muslims at stake. And today's bill solves for that, because not only are we going to be finding terrorist attacks, potential terrorist attacks, but because we can prosecute hate crimes as domestic terrorism, it will also be under the jurisdiction of the NSA to find potential attacks against Muslims. And so we're going to solve for the Islamophobic hate crimes that are taking potentially hundreds of Muslim American lives. But next, let's take a look at what Senator Stafford said. He said that the NSA cannot search through all of the flagged tweets. And he's actually right. But that's why today's bill doesn't make the NSA do that. If you read Section 3 again, Senator Stafford, it says the Department of Defense, in coordination with the Director of National Intelligence, will coordinate efforts to do this. The Department of Defense has infinitely more resources than the National Security Agency. They use a variety of algorithms that not only takes a combination of keywords, but also certain Quranic verses that ISIS typically uses. But that brings me to my last point, why this will specifically hurt ISIS's recruitment. A study by the International Conference on Data Mining from December 9th explains how if we target metadata on social media, which is one area that ISIS uses to recruit, we can allow ourselves to force them into something called the deep web, a section of the web that is untraceable, but also is blocked off to the general populace and to normal search engines. And by doing that, we'll be able to force them away from the majority of people that they recruit. They'll be in the criminal network that they already are, and they won't have access to most people. Senators, we've seen this form of metadata collection work because just a few days ago, according to today's scenario, we saved the lives of hundreds of Americans by foiling a plot that could have happened on American soil, a plot the size of the Paris attacks. The fact of the matter is that I understand the concerns of the negation, but those concerns don't outweigh the lives of thousands of American people. Thanks.
David, that speech of 3 minutes, 2 seconds. All questions for this presentation. Senator Fiber.
So in terms of those Islamophobic hate crimes, say if I go to the comment section of a YouTube video, people are posting terrible things, how do you determine which ones are actual threats and which ones are just hate speech?
Well, that's when the Department of Defense looks at these threats, they rate them at levels, and then they have algorithms that sort through them. And yes, this will take a lot of...
How do algorithms sort which ones are actually going to be
It takes the number of keywords, the number of combinations, and the number of other things, like references to specific Quranic verses.
So which
yes, it will take a lot of manpower, but that's what the DoD has. If we have enough resources,
Mr. Haq, you talked about how this would stop terrorists. Can you cite a single example of the PRISM program stopping terrorism?
This is not the PRISM program. The NSA's PRISM program was
metadata collection, correct?
No, but it was metadata collection specific to telephones. ISIS doesn't call up people and say, hey, join ISIS. ISIS comes through social media, and that's what today's metadata collection is targeting.
Right, but just so we're clear, you can't have a single example of metadata collection working in the past.
Well, yes, I can't have a single example that says old metadata collection works, but today we've seen a few days ago that it did work in some cases.
Speaker, take